Welcome back. Family law can be one of the most difficult things to understand and navigate, especially when emotions can be running extremely high. Well, here to help tackle some of the most commonly asked questions is attorney at law with the legal team Lusk, Drasites Tolisano, PA, Jenna Kirtley. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I should say I'm not an attorney, so I'm so happy to have you here to answer some of these questions because, again, I know a lot of people have very similar questions to what we are going to go over this morning. And like I said, I think sometimes emotions kind of do get into some of this stuff with family law. And law changes from state to state, too. The first question, let's tackle this, Jenna, where I think people assume that they, they can't afford the legal team, or they maybe want to try to do some of this stuff themselves. There is some things that people can do themselves. Where do you steer them? How do you help people do that?
Generally, the first question I ask is if they have children. If children are involved, there's going to be a lot more complicated process, and you really are going to want an attorney.
Okay.
If you don't have children and you and your spouse are on decent terms and able to kind of reach an agreement, there's things you can do yourself. You can file your own petition, answer, settlement agreement. The Florida courts actually try to make it very user-friendly, and the Florida Supreme...
And they do? You think they make it pretty user-friendly?
They try to.
Okay.
They have forms available online, the Florida Supreme Court website, that has instructions to fill out the forms and tell you what you need to file. But the forms can be complicated and some people can't understand them. So I usually recommend, even if you think you've reached an agreement, you think you know what you want to do, at least have that initial consult with an attorney. You might be waiving rights to something you didn't know you have, because while the forms are kind of a fill in the blank, they don't tell you what your rights are.
Well, and they change from different. So I know a lot of times people talk to their friends and their family and get advice of what, but you just, you really need to, and they change too.
Yes. Even,
in the same state.
Yeah.
So I think it is worth probably.
Yeah, I usually recommend, even if you think you've reached that agreement, at least meet with an attorney, see what your rights are, and even if that attorney just writes out that settlement agreement for you, at least you know what you were allowed to have, and you don't waive a right to something by not knowing.
All right, second question. What if two people, they're never married, but they do share a child together? What rights do they have to that child?
That's going to depend if you're mom or dad. If you're mom, you automatically have those rights to your child. If you're dad, you have to establish paternity. So you file a paternity action in court, and from there you get to ask for timeshare, which is another word for custody visitation.
Okay. Well, and my first thought was,
do
you get 50-50? If you prove that your paternity, is it mom gets 50%, dad gets 50%?
It's not always the case. Their judges and courts are leaning toward a 50-50, but it kind of comes back to then, once paternity is established, the same as if you were getting divorced. You have to, go through the process, and then the court, if you guys don't reach an agreement on a 50-50, will tell you what your timeshare schedule will be.
All right. Now, let's say you're married, maybe you're not married, you have the child. Is the child allowed to choose which parent they want to live with?
Once the child's 12, and I'm not 100% sure why they came up with that magic number. It's partially with their mental development and emotional.
So 12 is the key number for what?
12 is the key number. It becomes a factor.
Okay.
It's
so
one
not
of
the
many.
deciding
No,
factor.
it's not a deciding factor. It's one of many factors that goes into consideration on who little Johnny or Jane's going to live with.
Let's say if someone is separated from their spouse, but they don't know where they currently live. And this is interesting. You say this actually does come up a lot.
I've been surprised how many times I get asked that. We were married, we separated 5, 6, 7 years ago. I have no idea where he is now. How do I get divorced?
How do you? I mean, where would you start?
You have to do what the courts are calling a diligent search. So you have to show, oh, hey, I looked for him here, done this, done that. You fill out an affidavit of diligent search, and then the court allows you to actually file a publication in a specific paper that has to run for a set amount of time, and then it basically ends up being then a default divorce that you show, hey, I tried to contact him, I have no idea where he is now.
Okay, interesting. Last question. After child custody and child support are set by the court, is there a way to modify that agreement, which I'd imagine would come up a lot? Things change.
Yeah, courts understand your financial situation's not always going to be the same. What works for you when little Johnny Jane's 2, 3 years old might not be what's going to work for you when they're 10, 11, 12.
As children age, they need different...
Things change, and the courts understand that. So they do allow you to file a petition for modification of both timeshare or child support, because sometimes it's the timeshare works out, but you want the child support changed, or vice versa. And the courts allow that modification. You have to go back through that same process, but they do allow that change. And You have to show, it's called a significant change in circumstances, which the court doesn't necessarily define for you.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of different things that can fall under that. Remarriage, moving, all kinds of things like
that. Well,
that.
I'd imagine that we just scratched the surface with a lot of the questions that people have. And again, emotions can get very high, I'm sure, in this family law as well. Something great that you are offering people now is they can call today. The first 10 callers, I think this is a great offer. They can get a free consult with you. And again, I know you have great other legal experts there.
Yeah, we have family law, personal injury, malpractice, general civil litigation, probate, all kinds of different areas.
Really worth your time to pick up the phone, call today, and get that free consult. It doesn't hurt to ask and to maybe get some of these things clarified, right?
Never hurts to ask.
Well, Jenna, thank you so much for being here this morning. I hope you come back again because I know these are very, very common issues, and I learned a lot talking with you this morning. So thank you, Jenna.
Thank you.
All right, we'll send it over to staff.
Up next, make the most important meal out of the day, the most important, how you can begin each day with better breakfast, and the latest copy of Shape magazine. But first, a look at your Fox forecast and news headlines.